Hey y'all, my name is Ann Wyatt. I started my career in workforce development with the state of Kentucky in 2010. That experience ignited a deep passion for manufacturing within me. I started this show hoping to raise more awareness around the bright outlook manufacturing careers have. Join me as I sit down with some of the manufacturing industry's most successful changemakers and learn how they're partnering people with technology. It's time to give people more meaningful work. This is Workforce 4.0. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Workforce 4.0. This is your host, Ann Wyatt, and I am so excited to have with us today the Director of Demand and Forecasting, Jaimie Horstman from P&G. Y'all, this is really exciting. We're going to have a cool conversation today. But Jaimie, hi, how are you? Thank you so much for being here with me.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing very well. Looking forward to a beautiful weekend.
Excellent. And Jaimie, I know that we had been connecting kind of back and forth on LinkedIn and through email and stuff. And I am so excited to have had the opportunity to meet you. And we've already had some really awesome discussions kind of on the back channels. But for everyone that is out there listening today, do you want to give them a more formal introduction of yourself and what you do and all the exciting stuff that you're into?
Awesome. Yes. Thank you. So first and foremost, I am a mother of two. I have an 11 and 12-year-old in 5th and 6th grade that are fulfilling in my life, and I love them dearly. But from a work standpoint, I have 25 years of experience in end-to-end supply chain at Procter Gamble, doing everything from where I started as an engineer and in manufacturing, going through tons of supply chain planning and customer logistics roles. And most recently, I've been the director of demand forecasting for our family care unit. So that's Bounty and Charmin over the last 9 months. So excited to be here and talk more about a lot about data analytics and transforming your supply chain digitally and all of those wonderful things, because I'm a huge data fanatic. Like to think of myself a little bit as a thought leader within our company in how to use data differently to try to be more productive, more agile, etc.
I love that so much. Yes, we're going to get into all of the things about data. Now I feel like it's more important than ever, almost, to really start analyzing your supply chains and using the data that you have, right, in order to kind of get ahead of maybe some changes that are coming our way. But yeah, we'll get into that. I've got to give you the traditional Workforce 4.0 welcome though first.
Okay.
And I gotta know, Jaimie, I don't know if you're into this kind of thing, but sometimes I like to do karaoke. And, I just go and I do some karaoke, and it's always fun. But if we were to go do karaoke, what would be your go-to karaoke song?
It's always Adele, Rolling in the Deep.
That is such a good one.
Every time.
I want to hear you sing. She has such an amazing voice. I want to hear you sing that.
For real?
Yeah, if you want
now?
to. If you don't want to, that's fine.
Or we need to get together. I mean, okay. I could start with there's a fire starting in my heart, reaching a fever pitch, and it's bringing me out the dark.
I love that so much. Oh my gosh, you do sound like her, y'all. And in Jaimie's spare time, she's a rock star.
No, I do love singing.
That's awesome. See, we'll have to go karaoke. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I know that I didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but you do have a beautiful voice, so thank you for sharing that with us. And that's kind of my general first opening question to the show. It just kind of helps everybody get in a good vibe, because that's a good song too.
That's a good icebreaker.
It's a good icebreaker, right? That's really the intention. But yeah, I know that we kind of got connected through the Industry 4.0 Club, and you were recently on with Mike and Mike, two of my good friends from years back, and they're really into data and how you leverage data, and they're super knowledgeable and all that. I've been fortunate to learn a lot from them, and then a lot of other mutual acquaintances in the industry. But data really should be at the forefront of our supply chains.
Absolutely.
And that's more than me saying that. I really think that you're the person that's knowledgeable enough to kind of lead that conversation, like you said, be that thought leader. With your ample experience in consumer goods and all that stuff,
I've got to know, what role does data play in maintaining that large of a supply chain? Because those are huge brands that you've got to manage.
Yep, for sure. I think it comes down to four quadrants, right? Like I think of them as predictability, productivity, agility, and scenario planning. So I'll kind of go into each of those. Predictability to me is about, it's really in the demand forecasting space. So I'm playing a lot in that space right now in my role in demand forecasting. But if you can better predict what your customers are going to do, then ultimately you are going to spend less on the back end meeting their needs, right? So think about it like we have some customers that have pretty significant unpredictable patterns where they will surge, and we historically have not been able to determine why they're surging, nor understand that they even are surging until it's too late and we run out of stock. At that point, you're spending enormous amounts of money to air freight materials in, interrupt production schedules, rush order, team drive trucks to get to deliveries on time for customers. And ultimately, you're probably losing some sales, right? So if you can get on the other side of that, and in the case of that particular customer, it was all about it was price matching. It was a price matching algorithm that was driving it. So we need to match and basically replicate what their algorithms are doing so that we can trigger at the exact same moment that their system would trigger that they're going to decrease their prices and we're going to see a surge on certain items. And then we start that whole process 4 to 6 weeks earlier than we historically have. We save the money, we save the sales. So that's kind of around predictability. Productivity to me is about automation. So I think of these in the areas of agentic AI and how we use that in track and trace now, right? So I used to literally call carriers on the phone, like truck drivers, to be like, where's this load? Is it going to deliver to our customer on time? And now there is agentic AI that can do all of those kind of tasks for us. There's also things that can be automated in morning reporting. So if somebody used to spend 2 hours running morning reports for leaders to see, that can all be done in the background now and come directly to their inbox via an automated email. So this is helping immensely with productivity. I think the third bucket of agility is really about exception reporting and decision making. So data is huge. We call it a data lake for a very good reason. There's so much data out there. And the first step in getting through it is to make sure it's not garbage in, garbage out, that you have the right data and it's been validated. The second step is really harnessing it and having an interface in the way that allows you to quickly surface what things need attention, but then also offer the lens of, what is the data behind the data that can help you make a decision faster. Get to the so what faster, I think is really what it's all about. So there's
like the root cause.
Yeah. Sorry, say again.
Like the root cause.
Yes. I love when you can build a model that not only surfaces the exceptions you need to look at, but helps you identify the root cause and potentially helps you find a solution, like all in the same thing. Like that's my favorite model to build. I think the final area where data is really playing in our supply chain is scenario planning. So I think about this as what ifs, BCPs, like business continuity plans, supply network design. Like, so if I'm trying to pick where I should put a new warehouse, right? You can use different algorithms, models, machine learning, etc., to help you build out that scenario planning so that you just have to change a couple of variables and it's going to tell you from a total cost model standpoint, where should you put this warehouse? Or in the case of tariffs, have scenario planning that can help you. Should I put more of my, production in India right now versus in China or versus in Mexico? How am I going to balance the cost and the timeliness that I need to get the products for our customers? So I think those are kind of the 4 areas I see data playing the most.
Gotcha. And this is amazing. Thank God we have the technology to help with that, right? Because that's cutting out so many man hours of your time calling people. Yes. And trying to assess where everything is and making the best decisions ultimately for your business. But from the consumer standpoint, this was one of the things that I think we really kind of got on a tangent on one of our calls previously. But from a consumer standpoint, I think we got to have a conversation about why this is important because, I think we are living in the largest consumer market in history right now. And then we think about I don't personally know that my peers here locally the folks that I would run around with, right? I don't think they realize, like, they just go to the store and they just kind of buy stuff and they don't really understand where it comes from. You know what I mean? So we've got to really have this conversation about why this is so important and where these things come from. These things are manufactured, right? But can you give us some insight on those thoughts at all?
Sure. I mean, I think I'll give you an example. What we've seen. So now I work on the Bounty and Charmin side of the business, right? So toilet paper. So if I think back to COVID timeframe and the consumer reaction to the pandemic and some of the panic buying trends that we saw, that has actually created a new way of thinking that our consumers have, right? So now, anytime there's a potential supply chain crisis, our consumers have been trained that they need to go buy as much toilet paper as they can fit in their pantry, because that's the one thing you never want to run out of, right? And it doesn't matter where, like, the supply chain crisis is happening and whether or not that's actually going to impact toilet paper or not, it's going to happen. Like, we've seen it. We saw it last year with the port strike. We saw a mini panic buy even when the ship hit the bridge in Baltimore. We also saw another one right around the tariffs. So, we've ultimately trained our consumers that anytime there's a potential supply chain crisis, even though we might not be impacted by, like, we were not impacted by the port strikes at all, but our consumers don't know that. And so they went out and bought a whole lot of toilet paper back in October.
See, I knew that, and I was like, what is wrong with y'all? We make that here. Y'all know that, right?
Yes, exactly. And similarly with the tariffs, it's like we're not really, getting a ton from China, but people were panicking and buying the toilet paper up, thinking we were gonna, change the pricing and all the things. And so yes, we have trained our consumers in certain ways, and I'm sure there will be, new things that happen in the future that start to train them in other ways as well.
So how do we get ahead of that?
Well,
how do we think about that?
I mean, data is the biggest way to do it, right? I mean, I was thinking about this morning. We're working on some models now that are trying to digest some of the geopolitical events that have happened historically, because we have to learn from history to become more predictive of which type of events are going to trigger which type of consumer reactions, right? I mean, so right now, for instance, we're actually seeing a slowdown due to the increase in prices that we're seeing in market. So how can we take that kind of a data, get the machine learning model cooking with it, overlay that automatically within our demand forecasting, and trigger to us either an exception that we would have to manually intervene on, or something once we learn enough and we trust and validate the data and the model is working, allow it to flow directly into our demand plan.
How can you, the thing I think with data that is always like more intimidating for like smaller manufacturers is relying on it, like trusting it.
Oh yeah.
How do you determine if that's working correctly? Is there anything you can share on that, or anything that maybe they can look for?
I mean, I think a lot of times you have to have kind of two systems running in parallel, right? And like I just mentioned, you have to have the ability to manually override. You have to have the ability to say, here's what the model predicted, here's what's actually happening. Am I validating that the model is outputting the data better than I could have predicted manually? And honestly, it is taking a long time to trust it. So we, as an example, have been rolling out, I would say, an add-on to our demand planning system right now that is taking customer inputs for things like big merchandising or promotion events that they're doing, and trying to have a model do the work that our customer teams manually had been inputting. So we used to say, like, on this particular SKU, on this particular week, we're going to ship an extra X 100,000 cases to support this event. We're trying to take that part of it out and layer in a machine learning algorithm that will do that for us with just a couple of quick inputs. Now, we have not been ready yet to let the machine take the reins. So we've been in this for probably 6 months now, where we've been having the manual overrides, but watching what the engine was producing in the background and seeing if it was going to be better, worse, the same as to what we were predicting. So you have to do that until the entire organization feels comfortable and confident.
That's awesome. That's great advice. I think you're the first person that I've spoken to that has had that kind of insight. So I appreciate that. I did not know that. But I think that does build some confidence, and hopefully will give some smaller manufacturing companies the confidence to start, experimenting and playing with the data and starting to trust it for sure. So I think, you're obviously very, very experienced in data and understanding data and strategically working with data. But for our listeners today, that maybe they're not as comfortable, right? They're not there yet. They haven't done the work. They're still fearful. What are some tips? Do you have maybe like 3 tips that you could pass on to them for implementing sustainable strategies, for managing the data and how that relates to the overall customer experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first one is, especially when you're dealing with forecasting, if we think of that kind of specifically, you're never going to be right. You just need to continue to strive to be less wrong. So to me, it's all about establishing tolerances and then just continuing to tighten those tolerances year on year on year and get better. Some of this I think can be done via just like normal methods of root causing, problem solving, action planning. Some of it will involve requiring and relying on new technology. So I think that's kind of like probably my second tip would be you have to embrace advancing technology, but you also have to meet your organization where they are right now. So for instance, at a smaller company, it whereas at P&G 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we were getting onto Power BI, Tableau, all those kinds of things to build dashboards and to build models that help us solve problems and do exception reporting. That may be where your organization is right now. How do you utilize and harness the data that you do have in just a better way to make your lives easier and more productive, right? So start where your organization is at and continue to embrace the advancements. And then I would think the third one is it's never going to be fully automated. So in other words, I think you're always going to need some level of business intelligence, right? And human interaction in order to continue to improve your demand system or improve any part of your supplier demand planning systems and platforms and ecosystems. So like I was just kind of saying how we have a new platform that's added on that's allowing us to automate more further the events and the promotions that are happening at our customers. But we still have to input something. The system doesn't know that Costco is going to have an MVM event in November. We have some level of dedication to get in there and say, here's what's happening. Here's the SKUs it's going to be on. Now, model, go do your thing. So you still have to have that collaboration with our commercial partners, our customers, et cetera, in order to continue to advance.
Yeah. Well, the thing about agentic AI that I think, which is I don't know how this has gotten so out of control, but y'all, we still have to tell the AI what to do, right? Yes. I mean, it's still just input, output. So you have to have somebody to make that decision.
Yes.
And I think careers in that field are really going to take off over the next few years, but somebody is really going to have that high level, human intelligence to be able to input that data into the AI for it to go take off and do its thing.
Absolutely.
For sure. And with that, how do you make sure that the customer experience is still top quality? Because you all are known for your quality, and you all are known for, your products, your brands. I mean, it's a household name and multiple products in every household. So how do we maintain that customer quality while we're still implementing all these techniques with data and strategies?
And are you referring mostly to product quality or the overall customer experience as your...
Probably the customer experience, because I do think that there is, at this point, I think your products almost have that like a sentimental attachment that has just been built over the years, but I think that that's very much present, especially in the large base of probably women that are probably a large percent of your consumer population. There's definitely a sentimentality attached to that, and it's such a bond that you have with your customers. And how do you make sure on your end that you're carrying that on into the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think just making sure that our products are available when consumers go to the shelf to buy them, whether they're in a panic buy for like the tariffs or it's just their everyday or every week shopping. And to do that, again, it really comes back to synchronizing our data with our customers' data. I'm thinking customer more like a Walmart or a Target, right? And further integrating that. I mean, we're getting to a point where we can integrate point of sale data from certain customers, like they share that data with us into our demand systems, right? I mean, it's getting that close. I'd love at some point to also be able to, at the same time, have real time customer inventory data. And combining POS and inventory data, we know exactly where we have to ship product every single moment of every single day, right? And so to me, it's just always about being present at shelf when our consumers need us the most.
I love that. I love that so much. And I can definitely tell that you're passionate about what you do. But what's the most exciting part about what you do? And do you have any advice for maybe some younger, like you said, you started out as an engineer, maybe some younger engineers out there that, want to go out and want to tackle corporate and want to, manage these global brands at this scale?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about problem solving for me. I loved problem solving growing up. I was a huge math geek. I majored in engineering in college and then was hired into P&G right out of that into engineering and manufacturing. And I mean, when you come into manufacturing, there's so many problems. You think of that being focused on machine, right? Like, how do we keep the machine from breaking down or start it up quickly when it does break down? We've got to make this product. I actually got the opportunity to be on a team that was working more on a logistics challenge, and I really fell in love with it. And there are so many broader and more strategic, I would say, challenges that are in the supply chain that that's where I got all of my energy and all of my passion. And so what I would say is, if you are kind of on the new end starting out, even if you're in the engineering space, if you love solving problems, supply chain may be the right area you need to point your career in, because it is just it's like snowflakes. There's never two of the same supply challenges that exist. You're always going to continue to learn. You're always going to continue to grow every single day in supply chain. And I would try to experience as many different areas of the end-to-end supply chain as early in your career as possible, because one, that will make you extremely marketable for your future. But two, it will also help you find an area that you feel the most passionate about. And if you want to kind of go deep in that area, go deep.
I love that so much. I love that so much. Thank you, Jaimie. I appreciate that. Absolutely. And do you have any kind of final career tips for us here today?
Just love what you do. I love solving problems through the supply chain. I get a lot of energy and passion from it. So just love what you do.
I love that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, Jaimie, I really appreciate your time here today. You have certainly shared so much about data with us, and I definitely appreciate that. And you've also given us a great perspective on how you've, met the challenge of rising up and, addressing things like customer demand while also maintaining the customer experience at scale. So this has been a super exciting conversation for me today. For those that are listening that maybe want to reach out, do you have a good point of contact?
You can check out my LinkedIn profile. You can find me at Jaimie Horstman.
Awesome, Jaimie. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And thank you all for listening. And we will see you next week on another episode of Workforce 4.0.
Thanks so much.